Well, this is the start of part 11 of the 1951 Ford F1 series. We're shifting gears a little bit. We've got the motor running, motors installed, transmission installed, motors running. And from here, we've got some money to expend on parts, and well, that's not going to happen. So we're going to shift gears a bit. If we were to continue forward, we'd need to install the clutch, the clutch master cylinder system, the airbag air system, and go ahead and probably strip the frame back off and back down and finish doing the 415 cleanup on the frame, and then start on body work. But we're going to divert until there's money available for those parts, those systems, and we're going to get on to body work. Body work's cheap. Body work's just a lot of work. And so that's what we're going to start with. We're starting with the cab. Cab was already on it, so we're going to go ahead and start plowing through the cab. Quite a bit to do on the cab. The passenger side floorboard definitely has to be replaced. The cab corners, they definitely have to be replaced. You can see the damage right down there. We're going to chop this truck 3.5 inches, and so we can get started on that. Right now where we're at, we're doing just general cleanup of the surface rust. Surprisingly, there's not as much surface rust as I thought. Actually, reasonable amount of it's patina. If you look right there, you can see where I've ran the sanding disc on the grinder across there. And what you've got is this truck was originally black apparently, and then it had a rust colored primer. Actually, you can see right there I've knocked some of the black paint off, and underneath it is like an iron oxide type primer, what it looks like. So certainly there it's rusty. Further over this way, there's not any paint there. It's all just rust, but there's more paint on it than I thought there would be. And so we're knocking that down, kind of a combination of a sanding wheel, sanding disc, you can see it over there on a grinder, and then a 6-inch DA with 40 grit paper, and you know, it's coming out. Also, we're hammering out dents as we go, a bunch of little dents and dings and silliness. So you know, we'll just work our way through. We're certainly not hammering them out smooth, but we're hammering them out enough that any Bondo requirements would be minimal. We've got a few that are going to be a little tricky. I'm not a body guy, so I don't really know how to deal with some of these things. But for example, this one is a decent little dent right there in the edge of the window frame, but there's also structure around it on the inside. So we'll have to figure out, probably going to have to drill a hole here, use a slide hammer, pull that out, and at least pull it out well enough that we can get it reasonably smooth, and then cover it with Bondo. For example, here was one dent. I can show you. This was a pretty considerable dent. It's now been hammered out almost flush. You can see some recess area where the sander's not getting all the way to the metal. So we'll keep tapping that out, sanding it, and get these things niced up. So I'm pretty comfortable with the look of it here, the finish here in this area. So perfect, maybe not, but pretty good. And so we're going to keep working along. We're going to ultimately, we'll need to order patch panels here and on the other side, and for the floorboard, those are pretty minor costs. And then we're going to take and put a patch panel here, which hopefully, assuming it's in adequate condition, I think it was, last time I looked, I think I remember seeing that this area on the donor cab I have was in pretty decent shape. So we'll cut that panel out from that donor vehicle, and then also trying to figure out, I think I generally know how I'm going to do it. I'm going to shave this shave this gas cap hole right here. And so I think I'll take off a piece, a similar shape piece from the opposite side of the donor cab, and then try to fit it in, try to match the contours and those kind of things. But I think that's doable. Here you can kind of see better rust, primer, patina. This is actually the paint. This is actually the primer under the paint. And so there was what looks like an iron oxide primer. So yeah, it's certainly rusty, but not as rusty as I thought. Once you start knocking off the outer layer of gunk, there's actually paint under it in many places. So we're working through the paint and the primer to get down to white metal. So you can also see I've got the window out, and it's not coming back. It's going the way of either the trash, or if somebody needs one, we'll sell it. But it's not any good for this particular restoration or resto-mod, because we're going to chop it and have to have custom glass cut to fit. So anyway, it's looking good. I'll come back to you as we get going on this cab bodywork. Later. Well, sanding isn't a whale of a lot of fun, so giving myself a break from it. I actually sanded most of the roof, about half the back side of the truck. I'm taking a break from it. I'm going to go ahead and install a patch panel here where the gas filler cap was. The gas filler cap, I'm shaving it because the gas tank's not going to be inside the cab anymore, and so we'll go ahead and get rid of it. Where it was, this hole was, and there was a rubber piece that went around it, and wherever that rubber piece was, the metal's not just rusted but pitted, and you can see down here even rusted through. So I went ahead and used some painter's tape and just drew myself off a square, not square per se, but just some straight lines. And I went and cut a panel off of the other truck. Basically it's from this area on the opposite side, so it's certainly, and it's backwards I guess, but it has this rounded nature and fits well. If I go in here, I can show you. Actually, as it turns out, if you put this side up here like so, it's got a nice shape. It fits the shape well. We're just at the point where it starts to round up, so we don't necessarily need to round up. I think it's going to look good right there. So what I'm going to do next, I'm going to take a permanent marker and I'm going to go ahead and mark this off, cut it out, and we'll get ready to patch it in. One thing I'll do before I patch it in is I want to be able to sand real well around here, sand real well on this, so that our tacks are good. Was considering flanging it, and but I just decided against it. I think that where it is, what it is, just the series of tack welds to put this on will be more than adequate. So let's get to going, see what happens to this thing. Well, after multiple stages of grinding the patch to fit, I'm pretty comfortable with it. It's move it around just a little bit, spread the gap just a touch, not too gapped, a little bit, tiny gap up there. Also, the shape's not quite perfect, though it is close. Down here on the bottom, pretty much matches the body line perfectly on the sides. Up here on the top, needs to have a little more curvature here in the center. So what we'll do is we'll start tacking where we know it's good, and then we'll use a dolly and hammer, and we'll put a little more curvature here in the center at the top. But I think that's going to look amazingly good. I've got to switch my welder over from 30 thousandths wire to 23 thousandths. Need to run my weld leads over, and I think it's pretty much ready to start welding in. Let's see how this goes. Alright, well, patch panel's in, got one coat of resin over it, and we'll leave it like that. It's still got still rough, but when we skim coat the bed, or skim coat the cab with Bondo and block sand it, then it'll all work out from there. So I forgot to turn the camera back on before I started coating it, so let me show you the inside of the patch panel if I can. So there you can see, there's the inside of the patch panel, and I didn't grind it all smooth. I just ground it a little bit, and because this is all going to be covered in here anyway. So that's pretty well it. That that hole has been shaved, and again we'll finish smooth it. We'll block sand it, shape it all up real good whenever we do the final cab skim coat. So on to other things. Alright, well, we've shaved the gas cap as we showed you. We still have to remove this panel. I'm waiting on that. I've got some patch panels coming for these corners. I just want to see where the corner, where I'm going to seam this panel based on where the corner is going to be replaced. So I'm going to hold on that, done a bit more sanding, grinding, otherwise taking off of rust. And now, because I'm tired of sanding, we're going to shave the drip rails. So I've cut the drip rail off. I'll show you the other side in a bit. Cut the drip rail off. You can see this is a body panel seam. This is where the roof connects to the door frame. So all along here, we've got to weld this up. Basically, I cut it off with a cut-off wheel on my 4.5 inch grinder, and then I faced it smooth with the grinder. And you'll notice, some gaps. Here's a gap that's a bit larger, and then a lot of places you can barely tell there's any seam at all. This section we've actually welded and at least partially ground smooth. We get done, we're going to finish cleaning up the roof section above it, and then we'll Bondo this to make it a very smooth line all the way. It's already pretty darn smooth, honestly, but there'll be a little bit of a recess right here that we'll take up with body filler. That's maybe a little premature because I'm still going to chop it, but well, we'll start here anyway because it's fun and I'm tired of sanding. So the rail goes all the way down the A-pillar here to the bottom, and so that's been removed. So drip rail shaving underway. All right, so we have shaved the drip rail. Again, we cut it off, and then we welded it up, and then we shaved down the excess weld. Now, a couple of quick lessons for anybody else that wants to shave the drip rail on their truck. How far down you cut this determines how little metal you have to weld back, and it can get kind of tricky. I cut this one pretty smooth. I wish I'd left a little more extension, but we're okay. A few spots where it's not quite perfect, but those few spots are not of any structural significance. The panels, the door jamb panel and the roof panel, are still very well held together right now with the welds we have, and what isn't perfect, Bondo will fix. And any Bondo that's going to be required for this is going to be very, very minimal. Probably see a little bit right in here, and this is just where I left this a little proud and then welded it and ground it to the truck, and this would have normally been a recess. So this little touch here will smooth with body filler. So thrilled about that. Let me show you the other side here. Hopefully you can see that side pretty well. The next steps before I go over there, I'm going to sand this down, big strip, very smooth. I can go ahead and Bondo it, just kind of finish it. Makes you feel better to finish it even if it's in sections. So let's go over here and look at the side. You can see the side without the drip rail, and then we'll look at the side with the drip rail. And yeah, to me, I think it's night and day. Love the look of it without the drip rail. The only question I think really remaining for me is how it's going to compare, how it's going to fare once the door closes properly. Hopefully we have good alignment, not too much protrusion of the door. We'll fix that if we do whenever we chop this thing, because we also have to chop the door and the door frame. So we're going to make sure all our gaps and alignments and everything are really great at that point, because when you chop it, you've got some room for adjustment, needless to say. So we'll keep moving forward. And like I said, we're going to sand this off down to bare metals. Go ahead and Bondo this, just so we feel good about it, not because it's necessarily the right time to do it, or necessary to do right now. Again, we're going to quarter chop this hood, so we're still going to cut this thing right through here. So it's really, it's not finished work, but hey, if it makes me feel better to see it roughly finished, that's okay. We get done with this side, we'll move to the other side, chop that drip rail, and keep moving forward. Hopefully we'll have some patch panels here on Tuesday, if we're not being lied to by our local delivery tracking service. Anyway, back at you later.